In the past few minutes, the Prime Minister has revealed the German-Norwegian consortium will build the next fleet of submarines for the Royal Canadian Navy in a massive contract that Mark Carney called a long-term partnership. Here's what he had to say a few moments ago.
We face numerous and growing threats, from incursions in our Arctic to attacks in our cyberspace. The nature of warfare is changing rapidly, driven by a proliferation of drones, autonomous systems, hypersonic missiles, to name a few. The world's changed. Canada must change with it.
Canada has made a huge choice that could change its future for many years. Instead of looking to the United States, it picked another trusted partner for one of its biggest defense projects. This is a strong win for Canada, but a major setback for America. In July 2026, at Canadian Forces Base Halifax, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems of Germany had been selected as the preferred supplier to begin negotiations for delivering Canada's next fleet of submarines. The Canadian Patrol Submarine project will deliver up to 12 modern submarines to replace the aging Victoria-class fleet. It is the largest defense procurement in Canadian history. The acquisition cost is approximately 30 billion Canadian dollars, with full lifecycle costs estimated between 60 billion and 120 billion Canadian dollars. Canada chose a German submarine. There was no American bid in the competition. The submarine Canada selected is the Type 212 CD. It is one of the stealthiest conventional submarines in the world. With ultra-low acoustic and magnetic signatures, the Type 212 CD is capable of Arctic patrol, undersea surveillance, special forces deployment, and is fully NATO interoperable. It is built on a design shared by Germany and Norway, two of Canada's closest NATO allies. The Royal Canadian Navy operates with one of the world's longest coastlines to defend 3 separate ocean approaches covering the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic. With only one of Canada's 4 current Victoria-class submarines currently seaworthy, the replacement program is not aspirational. It is operationally urgent. The procurement timeline is documented and specific. Canada will conclude contracting no later than the end of 2027. The first 4 submarines will be delivered ahead of schedule in 2034. The procurement process moved with a speed that Secretary of State for Defense Procurement Stephen Fuhr specifically highlighted. Today's announcement demonstrates that Canada can move at the speed of relevance. Completing a competitive process of this scale in roughly 8 months, while maintaining a rigorous and fair evaluation, is an important milestone in modernizing defense procurement. 8 months from qualified suppliers identified to preferred bidder announced is a procurement timeline that would have been inconceivable for a project of this scale under Canada's previous defense acquisition processes. The Defense Investment Agency, created specifically to accelerate procurement and cut red tape, managed the CPSP evaluation. The multi-stage process included a request for information from September 2024 to February 2025, identification of 2 qualified suppliers on August 26, 2025, issuance of proposal instructions in November 2025, submission of proposals in March 2026, and a bid clarification and amendment process concluded on April 29, 2026. The evaluation covered military capability, industrial benefits, economic benefits to Canadian workers, and alignment with Canada's defense industrial strategy. The reserve supplier named in the announcement is Hanwha Ocean of South Korea, the company whose June 1, 2026 signing ceremony at Martinrea International in Vaughan, Ontario formalized industrial agreements with Algoma Steel and the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. KPMG had independently estimated that the Hanwha program would support more than 25,000 full-time jobs annually and generate more than $100 billion in GDP impact between 2026 and 2040. 4. By naming both a preferred supplier and a reserve supplier, Canada has strengthened the resilience of the program if negotiations with TKMS fail to conclude by the end of 2027. Canada can designate Hanwha as the preferred supplier and proceed without restarting the evaluation process. The TKMS selection is being advanced under Canada's Build Partner Buy framework, the second tier of the 3-part procurement hierarchy established in Canada's Defense Industrial Strategy, published in February 2026. Under that framework, Canada builds domestically when sovereign capability exists, partners with trusted allies when it does not, and buys off the shelf only as a last resort. Submarines are in the partner tier. Canada has no domestic submarine industrial capacity, but the Type 212 CD's co-development with Norway creates a trilateral relationship in which Canada, Germany, and Norway share a platform. That trilateral relationship carries operational, maintenance, and intelligence sharing benefits that an off-the-shelf purchase from a single foreign supplier would not provide. In a more dangerous and divided world, Canada must be prepared to defend our interests, protect our citizens, build our economy, and secure our future. To that end, we are making the largest defense procurement in our nation's history with speed, ambition, and discipline. Canada's next submarine fleet will secure our coastlines and waters, and their construction will have enormous, lasting benefits for Canadian industries and workers. Together with our German and Norwegian allies, we will build at speed and scale to expand our strategic capabilities and create greater strategic autonomy, Carney stated at the Halifax announcement. The geopolitical context surrounding the announcement is the one that makes its timing significant, independent of the submarine's technical merits. The announcement came one day before the NATO summit opened in Ankara, a summit at which Canada arrived, having achieved the 2% GDP defense spending benchmark for the first time since the fall of the Berlin Wall, having spent more than $63 billion in the largest year-over-year defense spending increase in a generation, and having now committed to the 5% GDP target by 2035. The submarine announcement in Halifax, the day before the Ankara summit, is Canada demonstrating capability investment, not just spending commitment. The Type 212 CD is a German-Norwegian design that uses air-independent propulsion technology that allows the submarine to operate submerged for extended periods without surfacing to run diesel generators. Conventional submarines using air-independent propulsion are quieter than nuclear submarines and significantly more difficult to detect acoustically. For operations in the shallow, acoustically complex waters of the Canadian Arctic and North Atlantic, where Russian submarine activity has been documented, increasing the Type 212 CD's combination of ultra-low acoustic signature and Arctic patrol capability directly addresses Canada's specific operational requirements. The German and Norwegian navies operate the Type 212 family and have documented experience with the platform in North Atlantic and high-latitude conditions. Defense News reported the selection as a nod to Europe in the context of Canada's broader defense reorientation, noting that the CPSP decision aligns with Ottawa's documented strategy of deepening European defense industrial relationships. Canada joined the EU's Security Action for Europe initiative in February 2026. Canada signed the $1.75 billion over-the-horizon radar deal with Before Anyone Else Systems Australia in June 2026. The Global Eye surveillance aircraft negotiations with Saab are confirmed. Italy's Leonardo jet trainer talks are active. The submarine decision adds Germany Europe's largest defense budget as Canada's primary naval industrial partner for the next 40 years of Royal Canadian Navy submarine operations. The project will be subject to Canada's modernized industrial and technological benefits policy. The CPSP will prioritize investments across the Canadian supply chain to create high-paying jobs, leverage Canadian defense industries, and maximize benefits for Canadian workers. Canada's defense sector directly employs 36,000 people, with 61,200 jobs across the full defense value chain. Atlantic Canada plays a critical role, home to nearly 10,000 direct aerospace and defense jobs, representing 20% of Canada's defense industry employment. CFB Halifax, where the announcement was made, will be the primary base for Canada's new submarine fleet.